Welcome to the nightclub, guys. It's your host, Night Wrencher. Now today we're going to be moving on to part 2 of the restoration of my 1975 Dodge D/W100 truck. In the last episode we got everything down to the bare frame. I got rid of the dash and all the interior and the wiring and everything, and today I'm actually getting started on prepping everything for basically the new vision of the truck. So first off, I did jump the gun and start doing the Hydro Boost brake conversion alongside getting myself an 85 Dodge parts truck that I ended up using as the basis for my new build. The main reason was because the new frame seemed to have much better stiffening, and it seems to be more solid than my old frame, so that was a big upside in switching out the frame. Most of my old components were also able to be reused, and I was able to not only adapt the power steering out of the more modern 1985 chassis, I was also able to take advantage of the cradle that helps support the engine, because on the newer vehicles it is a one piece, and I was able to cut out the rivets and move the center support 4 inches back for my new powertrain. The main reason for that was basically because if I had left them in the same position, I was going to need to modify my radiator and the core support and everything like that, and this was a lot easier than actually getting the radiator to move. It was just easier to move the engine farther back, so I basically just moved everything 4 inches back, basically just jumped it with a piece of wood, drilled the other 3 holes, and then I was gravy after that. I was basically in between using 2 different chassis for this build. The engine that I decided to go with was a 2001 5.3 GM LS engine, mated to a Toyota R150 5-speed transmission. This actually came to me when I was trying to build my Toyota and just realized that I was fighting space in order to fit a more powerful powertrain, and because I was building a classic truck, I said, well, why not? No one's ever done this before, so I guess I'll be the first one to do it. The first thing that I noticed, that not only were the frames a little bit different, but I was also able to prototype the motor mounts on this frame, and even though the other one was different, I was able to just basically transfer everything over to my new frame, and then able to move on to getting my new differential in there. I got rid of the open Dana 60 and decided to go with a Ford 8.8. This particular transmission is actually very popular in the hot rod community. It's got 373 factory gear set along with a factory LSD, 5x114.3 or 5x4.5 lug pattern, rear disc brakes, the whole shebang, 31 spline axles. Pretty happy with that swap. After I got the new frame set up, I did give it a sand and a fresh coat of paint before putting the axle back in. Originally I decided to go with the original solid axle for the truck for my 1975, until I realized that it was a full-time axle, which I then decided to switch over to the CAD center axle disconnect axle from the 1985 truck, and I'm going to be figuring something out in the future for being able to switch it on and off. I did get the bell housing adapter from Advanced Adapters along with the clutch kit. If I was to recommend, I would recommend the transmission because of how well it shifts. I can't really recommend the transmission because of how much I paid for it. It was just absurd how much it cost to adapt this transmission into my chassis. I believe the bell housing adapter was like $700 and something, and then the clutch kit was like another almost $700 and something, and it was just, for $1,400 you could have probably, plus transmission for like, let's say $1,500 to $2,000, you probably could have had yourself like a T56 or something like that, or a T5. After I got the motor running, I did decide to move on to the core support. There was a lot of rust in it, a lot of rust repair. I basically just cut out whatever I didn't need. Then I just poured acid down the old rust sections that I couldn't actually reach, and then welded new metal in the sections to cover up what I couldn't get to. And overall it came out pretty nice. It was pretty easy to weld everything together. It's fairly good metal. It's from 1975, but the rust actually wasn't, too bad. It was just in certain sections where water would get trapped. It's just one of those things when you're dealing with old vehicles that you can't really get away from rust repair. It's just, I have videos for all this stuff. I'm hoping to put it in the video as we're moving along, so you guys can take each step individually and see what you'd like to do with your own vehicle, and what you might consider a good and or bad modification. I am deciding to paint this whole thing myself. I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not exactly the best painter, but it is something that I try very hard to do everything myself. I'm very DIY oriented, and if I had the money to just pay somebody to build this whole truck, I might not even let them do that. This truck has been a huge learning process. I've done a lot of things that I've never would have thought that I would have done myself. I've learned so many different skills, been able to take advantage of tools and equipment that I don't usually use on a regular basis, and it just overall makes me a better mechanic or technician in the long run. Even if I don't actually work on anybody else's cars, it's been quite a long time since I actually decided to work on other people's cars. But the next thing I decided to move on was actually not only the finishing up the Hydro Boost, but as well as the clutch line. And the Hydro Boost unit was a fairly simple install. That was a matter of just teeing off the return line back into the GM pump, swapping out the adapter with the GM pump, one out of the 85, and then running factory GM lines and then bending the heck out of them so they would be able to fit not only my gear but also my Hydro Boost unit and pump. This is where I'm at right now. There's a lot more work that I've done so far, but for the most part this is everything that I can show you guys in one episode without it being like half an hour long. So keep an eye out for part 3 of how I decided to do things, or why I decided to do things. Feel free to comment down below. I hope to see you all in the next one. Night Rancher out.